Thank you so much. Um, you guys assume everybody can hear me okay. I apologize for being a few minutes behind. I'm in Austin at South by Southwest, and I was meeting with Intel Corporation, and that went a little bit long, so I apologize there. Now I'm in this very small, conference room with the air blasting. So if I start shivering a bit here, though, um, ignore me. All right, so we're going to talk about sign of the cybersecurity times. Before I get into that, let me introduce myself a little bit, get a little bit of my background. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for the last 29 years. I'm blessed not to look that old. If you get bored and you want to ping me offline, I'll tell you some biohacking techniques. But I've been doing this a long time. I've done a bunch of security assessments, penetration testing, led global pen testing teams, done incident response, threat hunting, compliance. You name it. I've had teams and had different companies have done this. I worked at companies like Microsoft, Lucent Technologies, McAfee, Intel Corporation, Silence, BlackBerry, and then now I run my own company. And my company is called Savitar, and we do cybersecurity focused on small to medium-sized businesses, security assessments, and external scanning. All that's free within our platform. We don't charge to do an assessment. We charge to fix the problems. So enough about me and my background. Let's dive in. So we're going to talk about a sign of these security times. This is a play off of a and a song from the 80s, 1987 to be exact. Prince had a song called "Sign of the Security," "Sign of the Times," and what he was talking about was, just things that were happening, crack and war, all the bad things that were happening. So he made a song about it. So we're going to talk about all the things that are happening in cybersecurity and how there's a lot of things happening as far as new types of hacks, new attack vectors, and we'll go into some of the things that are happening and what we can do to help overcome them. Okay, so again, there has been an increase in cyber attacks against, whether it be fintechs or just regular companies, period, over the last 5 years. And it's interesting, you think about how will you get hacked. Most companies have to realize that, 60% of them will be a victim of some type of cyber attack in the next year. And you have to have the proper controls in place. We'll talk about some of those as it relates to how to secure your company. So we talk about some of the hacks that have happened out there. The hackers are creating fake banking apps. They're creating fake bank accounts. In Mexico City, the fintech system that the 7-Eleven stores were using was actually compromised to the point where they had the system that crashed and they couldn't do any type of transactions at all. But these attacks keep coming. One of the things I'll talk about here is a hacker group called Scattered Spider. Usually, I'll make these a little bit more interactive, but when you talk about what Scattered Spider and Alpha V and some of these newer hacker groups are doing, these are the ones that did the MGM hack and the Caesars hack over the summer and the fall. What's changed is that they are exploiting the human along with vulnerabilities within the systems. So when we call this human vulnerability exploitation, what happened with the MGM hack, and again, this is all public because they publicized it. Literally, they recorded the calls when they were hacking into the company. And the challenge that we ran into is that the IT staff at MGM did not know, and the help desk staff didn't know each other, right? And so someone could call in and impersonate an IT person, and they got them to change their Okta multi-factor authentication password, and they were able to reset it right there on the fly, which gave them full access into the MGM environment, all the access that an IT person would have. And so one of the biggest targets in a company is the IT staff because they have admin credentials to everything. So that's how the hack started. But once they got in, they started dropping ransomware, malware, and getting really full control over every aspect of the network. And then it turned into extortion. Okay. And in extortion, they were asking for, there's different numbers I've heard, but up to $100 million. But it cost MGM 100 million, more than 100 million so far, to clean up. They did not pay the ransom. They did not pay the hackers. They had to rebuild, and it cost us that much money. So again, Alpha V and Scared Spider, they tend to work together, two different hacking groups, but they do work together on many cases. There was a hack at a company called Meridian Link that's based in Costa Mesa, California, not too far from us. What they did is they hacked in, exfiltrated a ton of their PII, personal identifiable information, and there's a new SEC rule that came out last year that says if you are compromised and have a material breach, then you need to notify the SEC within a few days. And so, with this new compliance requirement, the hacker group was like, wait a second, this is a material breach. Meridian Link said it wasn't a material breach. They did not notify the SEC. So guess what? The hacker group contacted the SEC for them and told them that this is a material breach. We know it's material breach because we have their data. We have all their data. And so as a result of it, they reported them to the SEC, and the SEC had to go and investigate this report that was reported by this hacker group. Again, sign of the Cybersecurity Times, where hackers are reporting their own hacks to government regulation agencies. And so, again, this is the article. You can see here, Meridian Link posted on their website updates of the security incident. And again, their stance was that it wasn't a material breach, and trying to figure out the materiality of a breach that is still in question. What means material and what isn't. And so, again, this is what is happening, where hackers are going in and absolutely changing the game. And the reason why they did this is so that they could get paid. Once there's an SEC complaint against them, it's forcing Meridian Link to acknowledge the breach and hopefully pay the hackers off so that they can, get whatever they were extorting out of them. So the other side of it, the SEC last year actually charged a CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, with fraud. And because the company called SolarWinds, the CISO attested and said that they had certain controls in place, and I believe it was related to the patching of some of their systems, and they're claiming it wasn't accurate what he communicated in that investigation. Well, I think the challenge here is that every single day there are 79 new vulnerabilities, that come out. Last year, there were 29,000 CVEs, common vulnerabilities, and exploits that came out. And that's up from 25,000 the year previously. So if there's 79 new vulnerabilities coming out every single day, and the CISO is attesting that they're patching on a continuous basis, unless he's patching every single day, there's always going to be gaps. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this lawsuit against the CISO himself personally versus the company. But again, very different times. We've never seen these types of lawsuits come out toward a CISO. Another interesting hack that came out, which frankly affected me a little bit indirectly, 23andMe. I don't know if everybody knows what credential stuffing is, but basically what's happening is that there's so many usernames and passwords that have been stolen over the last 20 plus years, and the hackers are smart. They're saving those passwords and those credentials off, and so they're using those to log into other websites and platforms. So if you reuse the same password over and over again, then you could easily be a victim of credential stuffing. And they use this with 23andMe. And the real question that's happening in this debate here is, is 23andMe liable because you're using the same username and passwords on multiple sites, and then that was used on their platform and got data stolen and them compromised? That's a question. I think the users, everyone should not be using the same username and password on different sites, and ultimately, that's in debate right now. So when you think about who has experienced a security attack, again, I do some of these talks live, but um, when I ask this question to the group, usually more than half of the room raises their hand. So everyone has been through something, and even personally, I've noticed that there's a lot of folks attesting that their personal credentials, their personal emails and Gmails and social media accounts are compromised. So everyone either knows someone that's experienced an attack or has worked at a company that's gone through it. And so when we talk about what enterprise grade cybersecurity looks like, the reason why enterprise grade is important, if you're using, say, some of the legacy antivirus tools or some of the lower end legacy applications, well, guess what? The hackers are using AI and automation, and they've automated a lot of their attacks to where these legacy tools are easily bypassed. You really need the best of breed tools out there to be able to thwart some of these attacks that are being levied against a lot of these small and medium-sized companies. But the biggest gap that we're starting to see right now is large companies that make the best tools, best cybersecurity products, they don't even sell to small businesses. So if you got like 25, 50, employees, it's very hard for you to even buy these products. So that's a major gap. And if you look at the stats, 99% of all businesses out there are small to medium-sized businesses, and 80% of them have less than 20 employees. And so when I'm looking at it from a hacker perspective, the hackers, they're looking at this, and that these small businesses, they're doing wire transfers and receiving large amounts of money from their customer base, but they have no security. And so it's easy to bypass and target these companies. And that's what we're starting to see, is that instead of going after large corporations, a lot of the hackers are going after the low-hanging fruit, and they've automated the scripting of these attacks. And again, the small businesses usually have nothing in place. So, we talked about, how companies will get hacked a little bit, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into this and really explain. So, for instance, I was speaking at a fintech conference in New York City last year, and I asked the group of fintech entrepreneurs and founders, how will your company get hacked, and what are they after when they try to hack into your company? And most of them said they want to steal our data, they want our customer data, they want our PII. And I said, no, that's not actually what they're after, and not how you actually get hacked. The hacks that are happening today are hacks of opportunity for financial gain. And so if I were to steal the data, or like their customer database, or the credit card numbers, I got to work to go and monetize that data. I actually have to make it into some kind of way where I'm gonna make money off of it. But if I can trick you into transferring money in the business email compromise, it's already monetized, right? I just get direct, cash into a bank account that I can pull out. Same thing with ransomware. So that's why those types of attacks are what is prevalent now. Hacking is absolutely for profit. They're, gone are the days, long gone are the days when, hacks happen to deface the website, or even in many cases stealing credit card data. Those are gone when it's more of a focus on the penetration testing of those applications, and getting a business email compromise, and social engineering. So what we're doing here on this slide here, let's talk about this for a second. We did some analysis, and we looked at before AI, Chat GPT and Gen AI came out, what were the number of attacks that happened? So we see a 1.8 billion loss in 2020 without using AI-based tools. We're seeing a 50% increase already since AI-based tools have come out. So you think about what that means is that with business email compromise, you can actually use AI and make those emails more intelligent and be more targeted, even more targeted than your traditional spear phishing. Is because the data is out there and you can use Gen AI to generate really, really good emails to target someone. And they're well written. This no longer where it's coming from another country and you could tell the grammar is off. They're well written and targeted. And then you tie that again, we mentioned the social engineering aspect of it. And there's just so much data out there to leverage if you're targeting a certain company or target. So the hacks are going to get much, much smarter and more aggressive of using AI. We're absolutely already seeing that today. Now let's talk about ransomware. So before AI, we were seeing just 150% increase in roughly 2021 and in 2020. But what we're seeing is enhanced targeting and predicted. We predict it's going to triple by 2025. It already has. If you look at the stats for 2023 that have recently have just come out, it is tripled in just that time frame. So ransomware is easier now with AI, and it's going to continue to increase. So when we talk about, what does it look like? What do these attacks look like today? Again, I mentioned it earlier, but these are the stats behind it. So 74% of all breaches include a human element, meaning, they just aren't exploiting, a vulnerability. It also has some piece of social engineering built into it. Okay. And I mentioned again earlier, here's the stat 95% of all breaches are financially driven. So if they can't figure out how to make money out of the hack, they're not going to waste their time hacking you unless there's some type of hacktivism. So again, what's important is understanding how are you going to get hacked and what type of attack vectors hackers are going to use. And number one, and it's been the one for a long time, stolen credentials. So having multi-factor, two-factor in place is absolutely critical. I'm still seeing companies that haven't fully implemented it. They're like, oh, well, we have it on some systems. And some of don't have it on their email, or they don't have it on some of their cloud SaaS applications that they're using. All those are leading to these types of attacks that are happening. The second one is phishing. And phishing, what we're seeing, a lot of these phishing attacks are trying to bypass MFA and stealing credentials. We've seen companies using even the authenticator apps, but they've configured it to where once you log in, it doesn't actually ask you for re-authentication for 8 hours or something. So you aren't getting the second factor. Literally, I did a breach last year where a company said, "Well, we have multi-factor in place, but our credentials keep getting stolen over and over again." And so as a result of that, I dug in. I found out that the timeout and asking for another authentication for that second factor was set to 8 hours. So once you log in the morning and then you don't get another prompt, and then in the middle of the day, if somebody sends you a phishing email, then you click on that phishing email and you type in your username and password. There's not a second prompt, and so as a result, your credentials are stolen because you just typed it in, and then the hacker can once they take your credentials and then they'll pass it on to whether it be Microsoft or whatever, log you in, but they'll also save that off, and then they'll use that and go in and quickly change your password and get access into your system. So that's happening literally every day at this point. And then, again, that ties in the phishing emails. The phishing emails are what starts that credentials theft in many cases. And once they get into your email, especially your cloud, email like a Microsoft 365 or a Google, then they're going through and they're setting up email forwarding. They're looking at how money may come in, who's paying wire transfers to you, intercepting that, and then getting that sent to their own bank. And then ultimately, exploiting of vulnerabilities. Again, 79 new vulnerabilities come out every single day. And so there's going to always be something to exploit. If you're not continually patching your systems, you will be vulnerable to one of these exploits that will lead to a potential compromise. Okay, and all this again is in the Verizon Global Data Breach Report. So again, looking at the cost here, and I have partnerships with insurance companies, and so they've done this analysis. They know how much they have to pay out and what some of these losses look like. So the average BEC, business email compromise, is $580,000. And then on top of that, your ransom is about 400,000. Again, these change every year, but you look at the source for the ransomware. It's a great company that I've been partnered with for a very long time called Coveware. And what Coveware does is instead of having, say, if your company gets compromised by a business email compromise and ultimately, or a ransomware attack in particular, actually, um, they will actually negotiate with the hackers and pay in Bitcoin for you on your behalf. And so they know that number of $408,000 because they're usually the ones paying. And so that's, again, you could check out Coveware, but they're a great company. They're literally are companies that all they do is pay off ransoms for companies after they got compromised. So let's skip over a couple of these. One point I will say is if you guys are into the whole debate on whether we're living in a simulation or not, and the Matrix movies, it fascinates me that a lot of things they were talking about when it first came out, over 20 years ago, it's coming into reality. But the funny note around this is that there are scientists that can't prove that we are not living in a matrix. So there's a whole nother debate going on out there that we could very much be in a simulation as well. So I'm gonna skip over a couple of these and get to some meat. All right. So I partnered with a company that does dark web analysis. And what they found interesting is that the data from some of these large breaches have shown up on the internet, on the dark web, usually about a month or two prior to it actually being disclosed publicly that a compromise has happened. And so you take Colonial Pipeline, before the breach was disclosed, about a month prior, you can see the data was released on the dark web, and there was a lot of noise around Colonial Pipeline before that happened. Um, there's also an attack on Fujifilm. Again, very similar analysis. 2 months prior to the announcement of the attack, the data was already leaked in on the internet, on the dark web. So by the point of being able to do this analysis and seeing how much of this data is put out ahead of time, and maybe you can stop some of the attack vectors. But usually this is more, it shows dwell time in my experience, meaning the compromises happen, data was exfiltrated, and then they end up notifying the company, and the company is scrambling, trying to figure out what to do to stop it, but it's usually too late. So it just shows the timeline of some of these attacks. This one is an interesting one. The Robinhood breach, Dark Sonar, which is a tool that does this analysis, it showed the elevated signals 5 months prior to the attack being announced. And that's pretty fascinating that, that the dwell time was that long before it was either figured out by Robinhood or the hackers notified them of that particular attack. So I'm sure many of you guys know what deep fakes are, but we'll talk about it here. Deep fakes really, really scare me because I do a lot of public speaking, and there's videos of me talking out there, everywhere. So if someone want to take a video and duplicate it and make it look like it's me, then they very well could do that. And there was a very, very big example of that just happened publicly. We're seeing this with presidential candidates being deep faked. So this is going to be a problem. We got to figure out a way around this. I haven't seen a lot of tools that are able to really detect and solve that, but I'm seeing a few starting to come out in the cybersecurity space. Voice impersonation or voice mimicry really wasn't too big of a deal where you're copying someone else's voice. It used to be, we used to do social engineering, and we would go and And actually, we could change the voice, make it sound like a man or woman, but we couldn't actually make it into someone else's exact voice. But now you actually can do voice mimicry and make it sound like Corey is speaking to someone. So you could call someone in their family and impersonate them, and manipulate them to transfer money or go to a bank or whatever. So those types of attacks are pretty scary nowadays. Phishing, vishing, these are absolutely getting worse. You see in my point below. No more badly written African Prince emails. Those days are gone. Everything is well written and very, very convincing. It's funny, even within my company, we get so many phishing emails. A lot of it's blocked by our phishing solution, but some come through, and every single time, knock on wood, we've been so paranoid, we've investigated and literally called the company and made sure that it was actually, them sending us that information. And pretty much in all those cases, it actually ended up being valid. But it got to the point now we cannot tell. Wow, I'm looking at some of them like, that's very good. God, I need to go call them and verify. And it ends up being, that it was, valid. But you got to be at that level, and you got to have multiple levels of control in place before any money is transferred out, and validation has to happen. And these are offline validations that need to be put in place. And that's what we do in our company. That's what we recommend that our customers do as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the evolving security landscape. I'm just going to point out just a couple of things. Again, I'm here in Austin, Texas, at South by Southwest at the Capitol Factory, and we just had a briefing with Intel on what they're doing with AI. And the point that I made as I was talking to some of the Intel investors at Intel Capital and a few of the folks I chatted with is simply this. Well, most small and medium-sized businesses, which we say are 99% of all businesses out there, which is 32 million businesses, they don't even have proper security controls, the basics in place. They don't have endpoint protection. They don't have multi-factor set up properly. They aren't applying patches. They don't do security awareness training. So if they have nothing in place, and the attacks, the hackers are leveraging AI technology then to launch these attacks, there are no defenses for most companies in place. So we're already so far behind. And as I look at a lot of the new technology startups, they're AI based. They're bringing out all these cool AI tools, but they're missing the fact that on the security front, most companies don't have anything to put AI on because they haven't actually implemented the proper controls. And then the second piece too, we talk a bit here about quantum computing, which is very close to being out. That completely changes the game for everything. Because any kind of quantum computing attacks, there are new solutions coming out. I know some technology companies that are there to help secure them. But again, that's a whole nother level. We haven't done the basics in cybersecurity. We haven't, implemented AI to secure most small and medium-sized businesses, which are most businesses. Now the next step is even getting to secure quantum. But there are solutions out there to secure these things. It's just we just got to catch up. We're so far behind in securing our companies. So, just in summary, some of the real life examples of what's happening out there. We're seeing deep fakes being created, malware is being built with AI as opposed to just manual coding, which again makes it be built faster. Yes, definitely stealth attacks. A lot of it using social engineering just built into it, and then captures are being bypassed using AI. And one of the interesting one is generative adversarial networks (GANs). So literally able to generate a whole network of realistic images and videos and voices. So it's combining multiple other solutions like voice mimicry and deep fakes all into a single solution. And so we talked about the human impersonation, weaponizing AI frameworks for hacking. Literally, so a lot of the new companies that I'm starting to see, especially here at South by Southwest, are talking about how to actually secure LLMs, large language models. Because again, hackers, if they can hack into your model, which has been done in multiple times, and inject them their data in there, or change the use of that model in some kind of way, what comes out of it will work in their favor. So there's lots of ways you can manipulate a model, and those things have been done. Those attacks do exist. And then, of course, deep exploits of the existing vulnerabilities that keep coming out, and then machine learning enabled penetration testing tools. So the traditional pen testing, in my opinion, has died. You have to be using machine learning or AI in your pen testing and automation of tools. And I frankly even venture to say I did a talk last week in downtown LA, and I just challenged the group that pen testing is dead. Like, why would a company spend money on pen testing when literally every single day, again, those 79 new vulnerabilities come out every day. You're in a cloud network environment. It changes every single day. By the time you do your pen test, write up your report, a bunch of new vulnerabilities are coming out. The environment has completely changed. So that point in time shows some value, I guess, of what has existed, but you got to know that it is a completely moving target. It's not like, when I was doing pen testing, 20, 25 years ago, there were maybe 100, 200, 300 exploits and vulnerabilities that came out in a year, right? And so, it just wasn't that much that changed. But now it changes literally every single day. Just the environment is totally different. All right, so let's talk about leveling up, because how do we solve these problems? We absolutely need to shift to a proactive approach in cybersecurity. And that means, shifting from a mindset of detection and response. So any vendor that is, offering detect and response, I challenge you to challenge that vendor. Like, what are you proactively doing to stop the attack? Okay. I was talking to a company just last week, and they got hit with a business email compromise. It only cost them $30,000, but they got notified by their detect and response vendor a week later that, hey, this account looks like it's compromised. We're seeing malicious activity. You might want to investigate. Well, the data had already been stolen. The account would have been compromised the week prior. Yes, they detected it, but if you ever look at logs of the internet, literally on a continuous basis, every single second, some type of exploit is trying to be launched against you if you're sitting on the internet. So if that's the case, then that detect and response is going to be overwhelmed with what we call alert fatigue, and you're getting just too many alerts, so much noise. How do you sort through it? If you put in preventative controls, if you are applying continuous patching, if you were blocking malware continuously, and had multi-factor implemented properly, then you're detecting and responding on a secured network versus a unsecured network. And so you have to prevent everything you possibly can first by locking it down. And a lot of companies don't have those controls in place. And so that's critical to being able to catch up with some of the hackers, some of the AI techniques that are happening out there. The point I'm making here at the bottom, how does the cybersecurity industry not become big pharma? Well, I know personally we make a lot of money off of the incidents that companies have, off of detecting and monitoring and doing penetration testing, but there's not nearly enough of a focus on the actual preventative controls. And I had a video come out just the other day about this. We think about if we use the same attack techniques that for our homes, then what we're saying is we're gonna not going to close and lock our doors. We're not going to keep our windows closed and locked. We're going to leave it open. And then we're going to detect when somebody comes into our house and get an alert. And then we're going to respond and try to stop. And when you think about that, that is ridiculous. The same thing with your car. right? You get out of your car, you close, you lock your door every single day. But imagine if you say, "Oh no, I'm detect and response. I'm leaving doors and windows open, and I want an alert when someone jumps in my driver's seat." It's too late. And then for anybody that's ever done penetration testing, so if you do a pen test and you get into a company, launch an exploit, uh, and then you proceed to escalate privileges and get admin access, and you can potentially even exfiltrate data. You can do all that within an hour, depending on the vulnerability and the exploits. So if that's the case, then getting an alert and detecting and responding isn't going to stop that attack from happening. And so you have to be proactive and preventative as much as you possibly can, especially now with the tools that the hackers have at their disposal. So how do we unscrew ourselves here? Let's talk about it. A few stats that are really important. Normally, Gardner, their feedback's a little sometimes biased. When you think about stopping cyber attacks, 90% of the cyber attacks are preventable if you have the preventative controls in place. You hear the old analogy of I don't have to, be the fastest runner. I just got to run faster than the person next to me, right? Well, in cybersecurity, if you're the low-hanging fruit and don't have any controls in place, yeah, you're going to get attacked. But if you have some of the basic controls in place, the odds of you getting an attack go down significantly. The 2%, I think, that of these attacks that really can't be prevented. These are some of the nation states, some of the zero-day attacks that are out there. Those can always, compromise you because we don't know about them. We don't know how to stop them. They aren't public. But if you have public vulnerabilities that you haven't patched, that you're not using multi-factor, then yeah, you're gonna get compromised. You have to put those basics in place. So we proved this within our business. Last year alone, we blocked 853 ransomware attacks. Yeah, and applied 224,000 patches. It has to be a continuous process. None of our customers got compromised. So we see this live where, these small and medium-sized businesses we secure, these are not targets. These are hacks of opportunity. But if you remove the opportunity, the hack doesn't happen. So I'm going to finish off with top 10 changes, that we need to put in place just to keep up with AI. This is just to level set. So number one, our effort is on the wrong side of the boom. If you ever heard the term, left of boom, left of bang, it's an old military term. The bang, the boom, it really is the incident. And so when an incident happens and then you detect and monitor and alert after that, you're already a compromise. Someone's already in your network. So what we really need to focus on is let's put all these preventative controls in place. And what we've done with our customers, once we saw, okay, we blocked 800 ransomware attacks. How did they even get on the system? Oh, it was email phishing. They clicked on an attachment or they went to a malicious website and downloaded something. Okay, well, let's put more phishing controls in place. Let's put more DNS security in place. So let's keep going left, right, and start preventing some of these attacks from happening. That's a mindset we have to have in cybersecurity that, in my opinion, is lacking because I used to be on the right side, incident response and just penetration testing and monitoring. But I realized a lot of my customers, they're still getting compromised. It wasn't solving the problem. So we had to be preventative. The second is we forgot about people, process, and technology. 20 something years ago, we would talk about, people, processes, and technology all the time. Here's where we are today. We have very good cybersecurity technology tools. Most companies don't have either those tools in place, or if they do, they don't have the people with the expertise to manage it properly. They don't have a process to manage and maintain and keep it secure. I saw this live at Silence. We would tell them great technology using artificial intelligence to block and malware on endpoints, and then the customer wouldn't install it properly or maintain it, make sure it's on all new systems, all that, and they would end up getting themselves compromised. We literally had to build a managed service that did it all for them. So people, process, and technology are critical. If you just have technology, buying the best product doesn't get you secure. You have to install, configure it, and maintain it to actually get the value out of that product. Okay, the company itself needs to take accountability for cybersecurity, not just the CISO. This has been a long-term problem where they hire a CISO like, hey, you got security, and put all the onus and responsibility on that one person or that one organization. But cybersecurity is everybody in the whole company's responsibility, and not just the employees, the executive team and the board needs to take accountability. We're starting to see more regulation making the board accountable for cybersecurity. That needs to be a big part of it. You take what happened with the SolarWinds CISO, that, in my opinion, never should have been able to happen where the SEC could actually find that individual CISO. He may have been stopped from implementing cybersecurity controls because the board or the CEO could have said, no, don't do that. Don't spend money on those things. You don't know what caused that lack of cybersecurity. So everyone needs to be accountable. Security professionals have to prove some type of ROI and make business decisions. Okay, what this means is I've seen a lot of security professionals go out and buy every single tool you can imagine. Okay, and they may be cool tools that send a lot of information and help you do some threat analysis, but it may not actually stop a cyber attack from happening in the business. It could just be a great technology tool, and if that doesn't map back to securing the business and helping to make it a business supported investment, then there's no ROI, return on investment. And so I challenge everybody, like when you're spending money on technology tools, make sure that those technology tools are actually going to be valuable to your type of business. For instance, in our business, as we partner with technology partners, if it doesn't actually solve a problem or prevent an attack, then we don't partner with that company. I don't need something that's just going to give visibility. I need something to stop and be able to proactively prevent something from happening. Visibility is nice, but that means that someone has to take a lot of action on that visibility, and you may not have time to take that extra effort. Okay, cybersecurity controls must become the law. You're seeing more and more of this happening now with some of the SEC requirements, with FedRAMP and CMMC. All these are slowly coming to fruition. Yeah, I think it's the only way that we can really enforce it, because ultimately what I see with a lot of our customers, the only time that they're actually doing cybersecurity is once they are required to by some compliance or either a third-party risk assessment. They want to partner with some large company and they can't do it until they actually meet these requirements. That is forcing them to actually do cybersecurity. So it has to be a law to really actually get the value. Okay. All right. I'm gonna zoom through these next few. I know we only have a few more minutes left here. Okay, detect and respond must die. I talked about this earlier. It's not solving a problem. So the whole concept of detecting and responding isn't actually preventing attacks. There's too much noise out there. Incident response has become secondary. And what I mean by this is, again, I used to be an incident response vendor, and incident response ends up being a big moneymaker for a lot of companies. But prevention and proactive cybersecurity should be primary besides incident response. Insurance needs to focus on proactive and preventative first, and this is a big gap. Insurance companies they have incident response panels after you get compromised, but they aren't proving that you actually are secure before they give you insurance, which really is where they need to focus, and that will help lower premiums and help more companies get secure. And then I'll pick on a lot of these rating companies, Gartner, Forrester, or whatever. they talk about these magic quadrants that they have, but they don't necessarily measure the right things. For instance, on endpoint protection, the magic quadrant doesn't measure how much malware is actually being blocked. It's measuring a bunch of the features, but not actually what is blocking the malware, which ultimately that's what you want to be measured against. So I think we need to have these you know. Third parties that are doing these evaluations of all these technologies to actually measure what's most important to these companies. And then lastly, the cybersecurity industry has evolved from profit first and offensive type of security to proactive, preventative, defensive security. That needs to be the first approach as opposed to the fun stuff of pen testing and security assessments. I mean, I used to do all those things, but again, if you look at it, the company that has a pen test or a security assessment, unless they're proactively implementing those controls and preventing these attacks, they're going to get hacked. And the goal of the pen test and the security assessment is so that you don't get hacked. So you told them about it, but there's just a pretty big gap there from what is actually happening. So lastly, I just say the onus is on us to level up and accept the challenge of proactively preventing cyber attacks and changing the way we're thinking about securing companies moving forward. So that's it. I don't know if we have time for questions or comments, but hopefully this was helpful for you guys.
Oh, it's on. Okay. Thank you so much, Corey, for coming to talk. I'll let you know if anyone asks any questions about your talk in our Discord, and we'll be in contact with you for the future. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to bring up our next speaker, Dylan Tran.